Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So your time is very valuable, so I'm not going to waste it. Let's just jump right into it. I have some messages that I need to share with you from some preppers out in Europe, specifically Belgium and Romania. So stick with me. I'll share that with you in just a little bit. But first, I want to talk about this information which was just put out by the World Bank, which talks about the world that is on the brink of a commodities shock. And what that translates into for me as a prepper, based on these messages that I received, is that we are on the brink of worldwide panic buying, and the government of Canada also is talking about price controls that may be implemented in the not so distant future as these prices are projected to rise. So global energy prices are projected to rise dramatically, culminating in the biggest jump in commodities in nearly half a century. Due to the COVID lockdowns in China and the war between Russia and Ukraine, prices are expected to surge by 50.5% in 2022. 50.5%. This is according to the World Bank. This amounts to the largest commodity shock we've experienced since the 1970s. And wouldn't you know it, that the S&P 500 has booked the worst start to a year since, drumroll please, 1939. What happened in 1939? I think something significant happened in 1939. Oh yeah, the biggest war in all of history happened shortly thereafter. So it is not looking good for commodities. It is not looking good for the S&P 500 and the markets in general. And yet the media persists in this headline that maybe a recession is around the corner. I think they're going to be saying it's a recession until I guess you'll know it's a depression when they start talking about how we're in a recession. That's basically the way this is going. Now, I'm going to share these messages with you, but we also have some more news, very important stories that we need to talk about with respect to Putin's health, supposedly, what's going on in Transnistria, as well as some nuclear submarine movements, which are very, very concerning. This is from a Belgian prepper. Hi Nate, I'm a Belgian prepper for 10 years, and since you like to be informed about the situations in different countries, I'm giving these reports from what I've experienced in Belgium. I hope it could provide your channel and other people in further preparedness. Knowledge is power. A majority of the stores put a limit on certain food products so that each customer can only buy 2 of these types of items. These are mainly flour and different types of cooking oils. They also arrange some products so that it looks like the aisles are full, but I've noticed that there's a lot less of it. Prices of certain food staples are going up by 20 to 30%, like canned food, as well as specific types of beans. Now, I was out yesterday with my kids at taco time, cheat day, all right, cheat day. Sure, it was a cheat day. Anyways, it cost us $60 for myself and 2 little kids to eat, $60. The prices are just through the roof. Now, I know taco time tends to be a little bit more pricier than places like Taco Bell, but I'm astonished at how much it costs to eat out nowadays. It's pretty much prohibitive for a lot of people. Electricity and gas are doubling, and in a lot of some cases even tripling, which strikes the growing group of poverty-stricken families to even the middle class. I don't know what Poland's going to do right now since they're cut off of natural gas. I imagine that the prices are going to be skyrocketing, which is not surprising why NATO is there doing one of the biggest military exercises ever. And so we can pretty much guess what's going to emerge from that. Now, army surplus and camping stores are full of people from Ukraine. They are either contact persons or refugees, or even wives with their children who buy up as much survival, military, and camping gear, clothing, and equipment as they can. They are buying these by the loads to send to their families and soldiers in the war zones. A specific example was a man who bought hundreds of modern military gloves in one sitting. Now, I can attest to this, having our store, CanadianPreparedness.com. Every day I'm getting messages from people who are trying to clear us out of certain products, namely medical products, especially tourniquets. There's a run on tourniquets right now. And because I don't want to completely deplete our inventory, because we would have depleted our inventory long ago, I've chosen to restrict the amount of different items that people can purchase, because that's the only way anybody is going to be able to get anything. In certain cases where we have a surplus of stuff, we will ship larger amounts of things, but we're being very restrictive with respect to what we can sell. And in terms of doing discounts, like wholesale bulk discounts right now, it's pretty much out of the question because there's just not enough inventory to go around, especially with this stuff that's going on in China right now. So this is very real, these shortages that they're talking about, and people buying stuff to send back, not only to Ukraine, but I'm talking about a lot of other countries where stuff is flaring up right now, including Israel. We've had several requests from Israel for large orders of stuff that we've not been able to honor, unfortunately. Politicians were debating to close down the nuclear plants in Belgium as of a long-lasting Green Deal plan, but it changed at the last minute because of the energy crisis and the war. Now, remember when I said 2 months ago that that whole Green New Deal stuff, the whole green energy, green this, green that, that's basically gone out the window now. That's never going to happen for decades because of the bipolar world or the multipolar world that we're now entering, okay? With the breakdown of the G20, it's just not going to happen. Gas prices are even higher than before. To think the government is having to shave off some tax breaks in order to lower it, even with this drastic intervention, it's still higher than before. You have to forgive me, this is not their first language, so I'm trying to make it understandable for people. The government and news agencies are portraying the whole situation as something that is for a short time before it gets resolved. Just for a short time, it's just transitional, right? Most people believe this, but it's giving them false hope every time another problem arises on the pile, the sands, corona outbreak, etc. People try to get back to how it was before the pandemic. I was listening to a debate between some policy analysts, and they were talking about how one of the guys was basically saying that it's mathematically impossible for Europe to replace the Russian resources that it currently is being demanded to buy in rubles, which many of the countries are refusing to do. And if they refuse to do that, that it's going to have a great economic consequences. And not only that, they're telling the population that they're going to be able to supplement with liquefied natural gas and oil and stuff like that from other places. And unfortunately, that's just not mathematically true. So they're doing this in order to minimize panic, for the sole purpose of minimizing panic and crowd control. So remember when they said, Afghanistan is going to be fine, we'll pull out of there and they'll be, the Taliban won't take over. Remember when they talked about WMDs? Remember when Powell said there's not going to be any inflation, and when there was, it was just going to be transitional. And of course, now we're seeing record high inflation almost. Well, that's basically how much you can trust the government right there. I hope you found this information useful, and he talks about how he started a small channel to help and inspire people as well. My channel name is Some Belgian Prepper, in case you wanted to see how a prepper in Belgium operates with different laws and cultures. So if you guys want to go check out his channel, her channel, I'm not sure if it's a he or a her, go check out Some Belgian Prepper on YouTube. Next email, Dear CP, this is from Romania. Thanks for all the great information. I wanted to, actually this is not from Romania, but this is somebody who's getting this information secondhand from Romania. I wanted to share with you that my boss is originally from Romania and still has family there, that he is closely following the situation. I expressed to him my concern for the people of Moldova since they have zero army, and he told me that Moldova was originally part of Romania and a vast percentage of the population is actually Romanian. He said that there is no way Romania will sit idly by and allow Russia to have their way with Moldova. Romania is a part of NATO, so this could truly escalate even faster than we thought. I thought this piece of information would be of interest to you. Indeed, sir or ma'am, we have actually spoken about this in recent weeks, about the Romanians potentially being pulled into a conflict with the Russians, and there was some speculation that the Ukrainians are even using that as a staging ground to fly planes. So what they do supposedly is fly at very low to the ground from Romania, because all their airports and stuff are destroyed in Ukraine. So they need, yet there's this increase in planes that the Russians are shooting down, and they're thinking, well, where are these planes coming from? The theory is that they're either coming from one of these NATO countries and that they're flying low under the radar until they get into, Ukrainian airspace, and that's when they're detected by Russian surface-to-air missiles and radar. Now, what else do we need to talk about? There's plenty of stuff to talk about, but let's just talk about this one quick story here before we talk about Putin's health. And this is significant because his next in command is much more hawkish than he is, okay? So stay tuned for that. Now, this first article here is by Nina Khrushchev, Russia and the West closer to nuclear war than the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, this is something we've known for a while now, just because of the simple fact that there's a war, major war in Europe. That itself puts the stakes much higher. Nina Khrushchev, a descendant of Nikita Khrushchev, the leader of the Soviet Union, commented on the situation in Ukraine in an interview. Just make sure my mic's good. In an interview with the Daily Mail, she estimates that Russia and the West are closer to a nuclear war than they were during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Among other things, Khrushchev stressed that conflict in Ukraine is more dangerous because neither side seems willing to retreat. He added that despite the Cold War, during the Cold War, both former U.S. President John F. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev agreed to de-escalate moves as soon as there was a real nuclear threat. Whereas right now, it appears we're just dancing on the minefield. And there doesn't appear to be any slowdown. There doesn't even appear to be any recognition of the fact that we are at higher DEFCON levels. And this appears to be the new strategy, is just to outright lie to people about what the state of things is, because they don't want to create a panic. Because if you recall, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was massive panic buying. Well, you probably don't recall, and I wasn't physically there, but based on news reports that I've read, there was a lot of panic buying during that Cuban Missile Crisis. So they're trying to prevent the panic buying. But when the reality sinks in, there will be worldwide stockpiling and panic buying. Mark my words. All it takes is a few countries, and because we live in this international market now, these countries are buying up all of the army surplus and survival supplies from other countries like ours, and so that leaves nothing to be had by the domestic populations, or very little. Now, a new scenario for Putin's health. Supposedly he needs surgery. Now, take this all with a grain of salt, right? Because we know there's a lot of disinformation about, Putin's mental health, and, the Russians are running out of missiles, blah, 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 bullshit, right? But let's just, it's important that we at least acknowledge this, because there could be some grain of truth to it. There could be some truth to it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's entirely true. Vladimir Putin is set to undergo cancer surgery and hand over power to the hardline nuclear espionage leader, Secretary of Russia's Security Council, a Kremlin source told the Russian Telegram channel, citing the British newspaper The Sun, which is incredibly slanted in favor of the West. It's almost as bad as news.au. The Russian president's health, which is an Australian website, the Russian president's health has been the subject of much speculation. There have been reports that he is battling gastrointestinal cancer and Parkinson's disease. But now new speculation is that Putin, 69, could disappear as he sits at the operating table, with power being handed over to Nikolai Patrushev, who has held the post since 2008. And he is considered the architect of the war strategy in Ukraine, and that supposedly he is the one who convinced Putin, because Putin's just some, idiot, I guess, that Kiev has been flooded with neo-Nazis. So their belief is that this gentleman right here is going to, and you see that guy right there? There he is. That guy right there is going to take over potentially and escalate the war. And if he has his finger on the nuclear button, that may not be so good. Now, this is significant also, guys. In Moldova, the government recently announced that it had received a wave of massive cyber attacks against state infrastructure that happened just before the attack on Ukraine. At the same time, the cover of a pro-Russian local newspaper dated May 2nd was leaked, calling on Putin to become actively involved and send troops to Transnistria, as the state will accept terrorist attacks. This is a translated article. In addition to all this, the Transnistrian complaint that the bombers entered with a car bearing a Polish license plate is added. Now, we're not going to dive too much into this because this gets really super specific, but all you need to know is that it appears that there's another front open up in the breakaway Republic of Transnistria, which is breakaway from Moldova, which was, I guess, kind of a split off from Romania, which, of course, Romania is a part of NATO, and, one thing leads to another. It's World War III. Now, this is, I guess, important in a way. Nuclear submarines from US, UK, and France are now docked in Scotland amid high-octane NATO-Russia tensions. I would say, if the submarines are docked, then that's actually a sign that either they're decoys or it's a sign that it's not as tense. Because if your submarines are docked, obviously if they're docked, that means they can be taken out by a first strike. So, and of course the Russians are claiming they can hit these targets anywhere in Europe within a matter of seconds, literally like 200 to 300 seconds. So that they're docked, if only temporarily, could mean, you know, that it's not very significant, or it could mean that they're interchangeable, meaning that, you know, some come back that are docked and that others go back out to sea, so that it's an indication that there is, you know, heightened tension, and that the ones at the dock represent that there are many out on the water and that they work in shifts type thing. Long shifts, because they're nuclear submarines, right? Amid escalating tensions between NATO and Russia, nuclear submarines from the United Kingdom, the United States, and France are reportedly now stationed at Her Majesty's Naval Base, Clyde, in Scotland near Glasgow. The USS Indiana, Virginia-class nuclear-powered submarine, was sighted sailing towards Her Majesty's Naval Base. Now remember, they basically told us all along that there is no, you know, there is no increased nuclear alert. We don't care. Yeah, we're going to cancel the Minuteman 3 missile test. But above and beyond that, you know, we're not too concerned because we don't want to provoke the Russians. And of course, the Russians are flexing with their creation of 46 new Sarmat, aka Satan missile systems, which can hit targets with hypersonic glide reentry vehicles within anywhere in the world within a few minutes. And yeah, nothing to see here, no problem. So I think that the strategy in the modern day with modern warfare is just to not tell the population much of anything at all, which is ironic considering we're in the information age, right? You would think that it would be harder, not easier, to conceal this type of information from people, but apparently because there's so much information, it's almost like info overload and people just don't know what to believe. Whereas before, it was kind of, I guess it was more on your doorstep. Now a lot of this is more remote. But indeed, there's definitely, clearly a heightened nuclear alert. I'm 110% convinced about that. If you don't think there is, then I think that's wishful thinking in light of everything that is going on. I mean, I would have never imagined 6 months ago that we would be where we are today. Well, actually 6 months ago maybe, but definitely not a year ago. So I was going to talk more about my theories about why Kiev is being spared. And because you've seen, well, the UN, the UN ambassador or something like that went there to go and visit. Now Kiev is the hotspot for all kinds of celebrities, and it's this thing now that you do to clout chase. And Pelosi's there recently, you know, before you know it, Biden's going to go there. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And it makes me think that the Russians probably don't even consider Kiev a part of Ukraine anymore. I mean, from their perspective, because it appears that the Balkanization theory is what is most likely in this scenario. And they're not even referring to it, or they're not even looking at it as being part of the same country, pretty much. They're just going for the east, they're going for the south, and then ultimately they may go for Kiev. But right now they're by and large leaving it alone, even though their missiles, I mean, it's 100 miles from the Belarusian border. It's not, they could easily target with precision. They know where all these guys are. They got satellites. They got human intelligence on the ground. They're clearly leaving it alone for a reason. So we're going to talk maybe a bit more about that in a separate video. But I would encourage people continue to stock up on supplies, not panic buy. And of course, if you're a prepper and you've been watching this channel for a while, you're sitting pretty on your food stores. You have nothing to worry about. For those who've been trolling the channel for the last, however long I've been around, then I guess mistakes have been made and lessons will be learned. But let's hope that nothing happens so that you know, you can have another chance to get you and your family prepared. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Let me know what's going on in your neck of the woods. Send me an email at canadianprepper@hotmail.com. Thanks for watching. Take care. Canadian Prepper out.